rise by 10 times as much, that is, by 600 feet, the whole of the continental shelf on which Great Britain stands would be dry land. From the edge of the shelf, the sea bed slopes suddenly and steeply downwards to a depth of 6,000 feet and more. Thousands of years ago, at the end of the Ice Age, the European continent may actually have extended to the edge of this sudden slope. The two great rivers which we know as the Rhine and the Elbe must have run on across the plain now covered by the North Sea. And other great rivers flowed through the valleys now filled by the Irish Sea and the Bristol Channel. The Thames is thought to have flowed into another river system which drained the plain now covered by the English Channel. Slowly the land sank, and the sea advanced. It crept up the great river valleys and over the shallow plains, forming the seas that now surround our shores. As it neared the high ground, long arms of the sea ran in between the hills, giving us the indented coastline of our island. There are still many evidences of the former link with the continent of Europe. The lochs of Scotland are like the fjords of Norway. They resemble the flat plains of Holland. Cornwall and Brittany have the same sort of rocky coast. Thus it is easy to see that the structure of Great Britain is really part of the European structure. Both Great Britain and Europe are part of the landmass of Europe and Asia. Across the north of this landmass runs the greatest continuous lowland on the earth. Its northern shores slope to the ice-bound polar seas, but on the west it reaches the sea between the Scandinavian mountains and the Alps, and continues into Britain as the great eastern plain. So also the mountains of Norway are remnants of a great range which runs through Scotland into the north of Ireland. While fragments of another ancient range run from Bohemia in Central Europe, across southwest England and South Wales, and into southern Ireland. Thus there is in Great Britain a notable contrast between the high ground of the north and west and the plains of the south and east. Now consider how the position of Great Britain is related to its climate. The position of any place on earth can be given by means of lines of latitude and longitude. The lines of latitude measure the angular distance north or south of the equator. Great Britain lies between latitudes 50 and 60 degrees north. Further to the north and northwest lie only Greenland, Iceland, and the polar seas. If we follow these lines of latitude round the world, we shall see that they include mostly lands which are cold and thinly peopled. In North America, for instance, the spacing of these dots shows which areas have many people and which have few. North of latitude 50 degrees north, few people live. In Asiatic Russia, the land in these latitudes is also half empty until we reach the industrial areas in the Urals. Only in Europe, and especially in northwest Europe, are there really dense populations in the same latitude as Great Britain. In July, all these northern lands are in the middle of summer, and the cold cap of the world has shrunk back to a small area round the North Pole and in Greenland. Within the white area, the average temperature is below freezing point in July. But as autumn deepens into winter, the cold spreads out from the North Pole, slowly at first over the polar seas. Then faster over the great land masses, month by month. Soon a remarkable fact becomes clear. The cold spreads down for 1,000 miles south of London, until by January the area below freezing point has reached these limits. Yet Great Britain lies in a kind of sheltered bay which penetrates far into this zone of northern cold. Within this area, which is called the Gulf of Winter Warmth, estuaries like the Clyde can be used all the year round. While the St. Lawrence River, for example, in the cold area, is frozen up for several months each year. The British Isles are protected from extreme cold by a drift of warm water flowing across the Atlantic Ocean from the southwest. Warm winds blow in the same general direction. These influences help to keep temperature in the British Isles moderate throughout the year. The great winds of the earth are caused by air moving from regions of high pressure to regions of low pressure. In the Atlantic Ocean over Iceland, there is nearly always a region of low pressure, where winds from the southwest meet winds from the polar regions. Disturbed conditions are set up when warm and cold air masses come in contact. A depression is formed, with a tongue or trough of warm air in the center of a mass of cold air. Winds blow inwards towards the center. If we look at this in section, we can see more clearly how the front of warm air is lifted over the cold. Behind this warm air, the heavy cold air cuts down to the sea. Clouds full of moisture form along the warm and cold fronts, bringing rain as the whole system moves across the British Isles. Thus, Great Britain has a maritime type of climate, rainy and changeable, dominated by the currents and by the winds of the Atlantic Ocean, which warms the seas around its coasts, keeping the harbors open at all times. These seas have powerfully influenced the life of the British people, linking them with other lands, teaching them to look outwards to the rest of the world wherever ships can sail. From Britain, the seaways lead along the coasts of Europe, of which Great Britain is part, and through the long arm of the Baltic as far as Finland and Russia. Other seaways lead past France and Portugal and Spain into the Mediterranean Sea. And so through the Suez Canal to the Red Sea, to the countries of the East, to Australia and New Zealand. By other routes, look south to Africa and to South America. And by others still, across the Atlantic to Canada and the United States, to Mexico, to Panama, and so onwards across the Pacific. Thus, Great Britain looks out to the world and stands at one of the crossways of the world's sea lanes. Because of this, it has come to be also a great junction of the new airlines of the 20th century. Great Britain's trade, which is maintained by these communications, owes much to her position on the surface of the globe.